Geneva on Thursday. Stan, followed by El Normo.
Sorry about that. So thank you for having this room. And I think there have been some interesting comments. In my mind, there's different plausible outcomes. One plausible outcome is to solve the problem about them potentially producing a nuclear weapon. I believe that that's fully negotiable if we want to do that, because they will acquiesce and allow various means of monitoring, supervision in such a way that they can't produce a nuclear weapon. I know that there's claims that they can't be trusted, but I'm sure that at this point we could implement an agreement that would limit their capacity there if that was the outcome we wanted. An alternate outcome is to eliminate any support of their terrorism going forward, and I should say alternate or additional outcome. I think that would be something that most people throughout the world would want, and that's more challenging on how you implement that. I don't want to put the framework together, but that would be a desirable outcome. An additional desirable outcome would be regime change. That would be great for the Iranian people. But I do think that the U.S. and Mossad, so let's just say 70% U.S., 30% Mossad, is responsible for 50% of the deaths right now. And we as a country should accept that the people died there because they were encouraged by our agents to do what happened. So the people that died, so the Iranian regime counteracted our attempts to get involved in to overthrowing their government by hiring foreigners or for non-Iranians to come shoot on their own people, which is awful, but we knew what we were getting into. We knew what the likely outcome was, and we did it. So we're responsible for 50% of the deaths or so. I don't know, I'm just putting a ballpark out of there. So, and when I say we, I'm clearly saying a portion is the U.S. and a portion is the Mossad, the country that supports Mossad. The further thing I want to emphasize here is part of this is a distraction. And the most important thing for us and for the rest of the world is that we put regulations around AI, because it's starting to eviscerate jobs. The knowledge of
which is a different topic, Stan.
I know, but the reason I'm bringing it up, this serves as a distraction from not doing the right thing.
Well, every topic serves as a distraction from another topic in the minds of somebody, and I can't recall a day that has not been articulated by someone about something, their pet issue, that they feel that whatever discussion we're having detracts from what they want to discuss. So I recommend creating a room to discuss that. If we or recommending to me that I use it as a topic in the future. I'm happy to hear all such recommendations. El Normo, followed by Hermes.
All right. Thank you, Gary. So I got a bunch of stuff. I'm not sure if the suggestion that the U.S. and Israel are responsible for people dying in Iran deserves any serious response, except to say that such a statement is morally bankrupt. And enough said about that. The JCPOA didn't stop Iranian nuclear enrichment. It delayed it. And it would have expired on October 18th of 2025. And looking back, I think we're probably in better shape that we were able to financially strangle Iran finally. And that, by the way, the European Union joined America in doing that. And also bomb its nuclear sites. So I checked on the president's quotes, and I would say calling them a lie is not accurate. What he said was we completely and totally obliterated key Iranian nuclear facilities, including Fordow. And again, checking, we dropped 12 30,000-pound mops, or massive ordnance penetrators. I think I have that right. The military, I don't want to say nerds, but the military obsessives here can correct me if I got that wrong, but I think I got that. So it's, and we dropped them through the ventilation shafts to ensure even more penetration. So it's not that bad to say that we obliterated those nuclear sites. At best, it's an exaggeration. Maybe it's hyperbole, but it doesn't sound inaccurate, actually. If you drop 12 of our most powerful bombs, short of nuclear bombs, on a site with the kind of accuracy that we achieved with American and Israeli intelligence working together, doesn't sound too bad, actually, to say that we obliterated those facilities. I want to also point out that Israel is the top target. Israel and the United States are the top, the big state in the United States and the little state in Israel are the top targets of record for the Iranian genocide regime. But in fact, this regime is responsible for the death of easily over 1 million Arabs, tragically. And I'm thinking of the estimate of around 350,000 in Yemen, around 650,000 in Syria, with occupying Hezbollah forces there, obviously occupying Houthi forces in Yemen, and of course the occupying Hezbollah force in Lebanon. More dead there, and then of course more dead in the 8-year war with Iraq. So in fact, it's well over 1 million Sunnis and Sunni Arabs from this regime. So 1 million dead should be enough to stop any regime by a power like the United States, the world's policeman. So again, as I'm sure folks have noticed, I like to offer different and perhaps less common perspectives on stuff. Let me just see if, I guess I actually took a few notes on these things. So that's kind of, and what deal would be acceptable? Well, there's about 4 asks, and there's a few things that we could do to achieve those goals. So as I recall, the asks are obviously no more enrichment, then no more ballistic missiles, then no more foreign terror forces, and no more killing your own people. So those would be, I would think, the top 4 asks, and I don't know that we're likely to get all of them. But that would be the asks. And in addition to outright military strikes, I think we could and should turn the internet back on there, if we have a way of doing that. I know we have ways of turning it off and discombobulating people with our famous discombobulator. I don't know if we know how to turn it back on, but I think it's something that the Iranian people would appreciate, and we get an idea of how bad this Iranian genocide regime has been destroying some people, and to stop their shadow banking system, which right now runs through our allies in Dubai. That's something that we can do. They do seem to be suffocating right now, this genocide regime. This seems to be a really apt time to strike them while they're vulnerable, while Israel has already knocked out all of their air defenses. And finally, I saw the notice yesterday, which you guys may not have gotten. I got this from the Financial Times, that they're buying 1,000 shoulder-launched anti-aircraft defense, I don't know what you want to call them, like Stinger. I don't know what the current name for them is. But anyway, shoulder-launched anti-aircraft missile launchers from Russia. I don't know how good they'll be or if they'll be effective, but it's something to be concerned about. And by the way, the military brains on this are in a complete agreement that this is not a bluff, that Trump intends to do something, but he was not tipping his hand, obviously. And as I think is civilized, he's giving the Iranians every opportunity to make a deal before they feel the wrath of the world superpower. And by the way, I think China is watching us very closely, because it's possible that they're the real audience for this, in addition to the rest of the world, because we're anticipating their move on China. Their move on Taiwan next year. And that's all I got. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for that, El Normal. I will point out, since you challenged what Howard and I said, that you got to be a little more judicious. I think we need to be judicious in quoting the president, because he says a lot of things. Sometimes he does not complete thoughts, and you can cherry pick, I guess, whatever you want to refute what Howard said and I underscored. And I'm happy to provide some of the citations for this, but if you go to Wikipedia, which in itself cites sources, the U.S. forces attacked those 3 key nuclear facilities. And these attacks had, quote, completely and totally obliterated Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities and capacity. I think that's pretty unambiguous. So I don't think it's wrong to say that he either lied then or he's lying now, that it's necessary for us to eliminate, or Iran to eliminate, its nuclear enrichment program. Where the White House during that period described the operation as a resounding success, expressed confidence that Iran's enriched uranium stockpiles and enrichment infrastructure have been effectively destroyed. I see a third citation where senior U.S. officials argued that the attacks had taken away Iran's ability to produce a nuclear weapon and made the United States and its allies safer. So why are we moving all these military assets to the Middle East? To echo Howard's prudent question, which was not debunked through one quote of the president. Bernice, followed by William.
Thank you, Gary. There's been a lot said, and I want to give a little bit of a different perspective. As you guys asked the folks, and I see all war as wrong. Some war is necessary, right? When you need to defend yourself from an attacking country. But I don't know if you saw where these Buddhist monks were walking from Texas to D.C. It was
yeah, there was a lot of coverage of that. Yeah, my news organization gave it coverage.
Yeah, maybe we need to take a page from their playbook, so to speak, right? Maybe we need to at least maybe start considering the message that they were trying to spread. And what I always thought so amazing about that walk with the monks is when they would come into the towns, the people would just start bawling as soon as they would see them, right? And a psychologist, I guess, said that, well, we as humans, we identify pure good. And when we see it, in whatever form, right, we become emotional. But thank you, Gary, for the mic.
Do you think that a bunch of Buddhist monks walking across Iran would reach the heart of the mullahs, who are Islamist, fascists, fundamentalists, and get them to lay down their arms and their attempt to spread their form of Islam across the world? By the way, it's not just the Jews and the Christians that the mullahs hate. It's those who do not ascribe to their form of Islam, of course. But that's obscured sometimes in the discourse. But you think that if we, instead of dropping bombs launched from those two aircraft carriers, trained Buddhist monks trained in parachuting, and dropped them over Iran, and they walked across Iran, that it would touch the heart of the regime and they would give up these aspirations?
I would like to believe that, yes, I would. But, I got a better idea, Jerry. What if we take these monks and we make, like each one a world leader of every country? And see,
well, I don't know that we have the ability to do that, but thank you anyway, Hermes. It's nice that you are a dreamer, and I know you're not the only one. Did I come up with that? Or did somebody else come up with it first? William, followed by Brent.
I actually agree with a lot of what you said and a lot of what Norm said. I don't think you can negotiate with Iran any more than you can negotiate with Putin. They want what they want. And I don't know that they will seriously be dissuaded. And if they claim that they're dissuaded, I don't believe they would actually live up to dropping what they want, which is to, as the theocratic regime, to oppress the people. I don't see that changing. And I also agree with you can't rely upon what Trump says, but he's the president where you have, so you have to at least listen to what he says and look for other sources of information to see what the hell is going on.
So in that regard, which one of his pronouncements are truthful? That the uranium enrichment program in Iran was obliterated by our attacks, or that it needs to be ended through these negotiations or a subsequent attack if the negotiations are unsuccessful? Which is the truth after the secondary sources?
I don't think either of them are truthful because I start with the presumption that everything that comes out of his mouth is lying, because most of the time he will contradict himself within the same speech or the same paragraph. I guess we'll see the State of the Union soon and see how much he ad-libs and contradicts himself there. But I don't see... So you can't rely upon what he says. I think he's probably lying about the obliteration, because it's a braggadocious thing for him to say. Maybe there was some degradation, but I would need to get that from an alternative source to actually confirm it. And I don't think we have very good assets on the ground that report back to us. Maybe they report back to other intelligence agencies, but we're not in the intelligence agencies. So, who the hell knows? But I don't think you can rely upon what he says. I presume that he's lying or hyperbole or exaggerating. But, I doubt that everything was obliterated. And I saw some other reporting that says, yeah, they still have highly enriched uranium or whatever the fissile material it is that they were working on. So that answers that. As far as what Norm said, with the internet, we could restore the internet with Starlink, but you need to be able to put ground stations in.
Well, they have attempted to do that, and I will give Elon Musk, who I sometimes am quite critical of, a lot of credit for doing that in this case. But the Iranians have countermeasures to that as well. That's the problem. So I just checked, and there is some restoration of the internet. It's very sketchy, but the Iranian government, as technologically advanced as they are in these kinds of sciences or technologies, so too are the people, and they are using VPNs extensively to get their messages out. And that's why we've been seeing recently video that purports to be major clashes on university campuses. And I think that's about the best we can anticipate restoring at this particular point, Wayne.
They also get the assistance of the Russians in shutting down communications and walling off their people from being able to communicate with the outside world. You know, the Russians are good at this, and North Korea is good at this, and that's, you know, so another one of their potential or actual allies. And as far as the air defenses, I saw a report, I don't know if it's true, but there's, I believe it is, from the photographs I saw, but it's hard to tell, that China is actually assisting with, maybe with air defenses, that they have some sort of research vessel parked in the Persian Gulf, and that they are able to track and feed information that would supplement whatever air defenses they have intact. I don't know if it's 100%, and I don't know if they were able to replenish those. I think they were using Russian S-300s, S-400s to track what was going on, but I don't know how many they have left or what they have left. But I think they are getting an assist from China.
Well, somebody called some of these countries the axis of evil, and that somebody may have been right. Thank you, William. We'll go to Brent, followed by Vendetta.
So a lot of policy choices, especially foreign policy, are about choices. You know, the JCPOA didn't deal with a lot of issues outside the nuclear program, but what it did restrict enrichment to 3.67%. You know, it did cap the amount of tons of enrichment behavior or enriched material at a lower rate to 300 kilograms. You know, you're now at thousands of kilograms of 20 and 60% enriched uranium. And it did allow the IAEA to do consistent monitoring and go into the Iranian state and get their best assessment of it. Now, the other thing it did was it created a diplomatic framework so you could work jointly if the group of countries, Germany, UK, France, China, and Russia kind of jointly agreed that the Iranians were in violation of the agreement. We unilaterally left, and we said that we're, under the first Trump administration, we're going to do a maximum pressure, and then under this administration, we opted for military strikes. The problem with the military strikes always been you have a crap ton of enriched uranium already in Iran, and the only way to really get rid of that is to go in on the ground and search the country and get rid of it. There's really no other way around it. Uranium enrichment, if you look at it from a technical standpoint, really the hardest part of uranium enrichment is going from essentially uranium ore to the kind of the first enrichment levels. Like when you get to 20%, especially when you get to 60%, you're very close to just being able to hit the gas pedal and make it to 90% and get weapons grade material. So I think at the end of the day, that this sort of leaving a diplomatic solution and leaving a cooperative framework with our partners is showing itself the downside of doing that. We are essentially alone besides Israel in the world in dealing with this problem. The Iranian state is closer than ever scary place for the world. And it's really the scary place for the Middle East. So I'll leave it there.
Brett, there are a lot of people who are, thank you for that, very critical of the JCPOA. I was exchanging messages today with somebody who, I'll tell you who it was Avi Perry, who wanted to come here today and couldn't. And, he's kind of like our resident expert when he's available when it comes to the Middle East and Israel and Iran. And I opined that perhaps the Obama administration was more pragmatic in recognizing that if military activity, I wrote this as well, by the way, in the chat over the weekend, if military activity is off the table, because that's a big decision to make, then the diplomatic solution is all that's on the table, and that in spite of its various failings, the JCPOA at least was something. And his response was, it was the worst thing that could be done. It was horrible, blah, 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 blah. I'm not an expert, but I've done some research in preparation for today's, just because I knew that there would be continued references to the JCPOA, which, for the uninitiated, stands for Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. So that was a 2015 nuclear deal. Under it, Iran agreed to limit enrichment to 3.67% for civilian nuclear generation. 3.67%. After the United States withdrew from the deal in 2018 during the first Trump administration, Iran gradually increased the enrichment level. These are, by the way, IAEA figures, International Energy Agency figures I'm looking at. Iran initially increased enrichment to 20%, and then later to 60%. Those are the numbers. People can reach their own conclusions, and they can make whatever political statements they may want to make, maligning Mr. Obama and Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump based on their own partisan viewpoints. I'm just reading the facts as presented by the recognized authority of the United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency. Vendetta, followed by Dr. Francine. And folks, we are now at 5:59 Eastern Time. We are no longer inviting folks onto the stage, but in about 38 seconds, we will go into extra time. Okay, I lied. 2 seconds. It's now 6 o'clock. We are now into extra time so that everybody on the stage and in queue will have an opportunity to speak. So we'll go to Vendetta, followed by Dr. Francine.
Hello, Gary, and everybody else. Firstly, I'm going to have to apologize because I'm behind the weak connection of VPN because I'm talking from Tehran. GCPOA was something really. It was fresh blood into the Islamic regime's body. That's what gave them power and bought them a lot of time to grow their proxies, also to work on their military tactics and everything, and expansions, and also certainly on their nuclear capabilities.
So how do you reconcile your observation from inside the country, which is much better than anything that I could hope to present based on looking things up on the internet as I just have, but how do you reconcile that observation to what I just read from the United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency website?
Look, the fact of the matter is that we know our regime better than anyone else because we've lived with them. We know their personality, and we know that they're not an honest regime. So nobody can trust them. So if they deploy any sort of strategy, their main focus is to buy time in order to be able to do whatever they want to do. And I'm sure that
Right,
President...
and I did mention that, Vendetta, a little earlier, that they do this. But I just want to know specifically how it is that when we left the JCPOA, the 3.67%, which may have been a lie, enrichment program, erupted to 20% and then later to 60%.
Sure, you can say that this was the original reason why it happened, but when I'm talking about them not being honest, it's because I know that at the same time, there have been several nuclear facilities that have been, the government had been working on. And I remember at some point, Netanyahu also pointed out to several hidden sites that they were developing. One was in Torpizabad. This is a secret location at the outskirts of Tehran. And this was one of the sites that they were able to discover through stealing several hundreds of thousand documents from inside the country. So this tells us that this regime is always capable to rebuild whatever they have, because the knowledge is already there. So they just need time and resources to rebuild what they were working on, which is their original goal. And that's basically through their ideology, because they need power. Because if I want to go back to their main ideology, I can go back to the beginning of Islam, where it was created basically in a land as dry as Saudi Arabia, and their strategy was to attack other nations to get resources, because they couldn't stay in one place.
Right. That's getting a little bit too broad in the...
But anyway, so I try to... I'm trying to say that whatever they have in mind as their ideology roots back at something very historical, and this is the fact that at the beginning of...
Agreed, that's a fair point, thank you.
Sure. You say Trump is basically has been honest about one thing when he said they completely annihilated their Iranian nuclear program at one point, and then he said that we have to destroy that, or we have to get to some sort of agreement in order to limit that. So I'm not going to judge that, because whatever I've learned from President Trump is that he tries to look misleading. So he says one thing, but he does another. We don't know, and I'm sure the Islamic regime doesn't know how to handle, or at least they cannot really predict the next moves. And that makes sense to me. But here, look at the points that we really live with on the ground. Last night, the news for us was that, okay, the amount of pizzas being ordered at the Pentagon for the night had been abnormally increased. So this, to us people in Iran, means that, okay, something is going on. So that means that, okay, a military action is very imminent. So hence, this to me personally in my life means that I have to go to the ATM machines to gather as much cash as I can, the cash as I can, so that in case of a probable attack, I would have some cash in my hand. So these are the things that we actually live with. It's not such that Trump said this and he did that and this. These are the signals that we try to live with inside Iran. But the real question for us is that will mullahs surrender? The answer to me is no, they will never surrender. And in my mind, in my life, the current negotiations is not actually over an actual deal to limit their nuclear programs. It's over whether the mullahs will surrender peacefully. And by surrender, it means they will agree to some sort of peaceful change of the mechanism where they will, turn Khamenei and his son, which is going to be...
Just a quick interjection. What about the IPP or the Iranian Prosperity Project?
Yeah, sure. That is a huge discussion. That is a very huge discussion.
Is that a good example of what you're talking about?
No. Look,
sorry, I misunderstood. That's my bad.
No. Yeah, sure. But anyway, that is a big discussion apart from this, because we're now discussing whatever up to the point of a regime change or an agreement with the entire world, Iran versus the West. Okay, after that, there are other formulas, other discussions, and it's a whole different game. But I know for a fact that mullahs will not surrender, even though some part of the regime, especially the reformists, would basically be showing green signals to the West that they would be ready for a regime change if they would be in control in the next order, and maybe they will. This is not my something I want. The only thing that I would vote for is a regime change towards a democratic Iran. But I also know that this is not that the neighboring countries of Iran would want. Like, for instance, in the case of, I can name countries one by one, and I would say why they wouldn't want that. Turkey would come into competition based on the military and economical things with Iran. Arabs will be competing over the oil. Pakistan will be competing over military things. Russia is basically against that because to Russia, Iran is a cash cow. But I also know that if the West weakened Russia, they would first have to put Iran in a situation that cannot support Russia in their goals. And also, I know that if the situation is stable in Iran, then probably the Western countries, especially the Americans, be dealing with the issue with China more easily. So that's, I would say, even if there will be an agreement, it's a long-term plan to weaken the mullahs, but I also know that this is a strategy that has been tested over time, and we know that mullahs also, from the other hand, are looking for more time to, reform and regather their strength and do whatever they've been doing so far, and there will not be a change in their strategy. And I will quote Mark Levin, whose post President Trump reposted in his Truth social account, and he said that there is no better time for the West to get over the situation in Iran. If we don't do that, we have to answer to the future generations, because any deal with the Iranians would basically mean another blood injection to the body of this regime, same as Obama, same as whatever, Democrat or whatever president, or whatever they have done in the past. Mullahs only are looking for time. This is the only thing that all we inside Iran as the people agree over, no matter what tribe or ethnic or political background or whatever we belong to. This is what we know for sure. And that's why at the moment, all the people in Iran, this might sound very odd to you, but everybody who's against the government, which I think in my mind is 99% 90%, maybe more than 90% of people, and also part of the system or the reformists, they want this current system gone because it's expired, it's not functioning, it's against the order of the region and also soon the order in the world, like, because as you have known, they're basically assisting Russia in whatever they're doing, and this is what everybody wants. But after that, okay, the neighboring countries wouldn't agree with a democratic Iran, at least an Iran under control would be a better option, but I don't know, some solution maybe in between.
So absent a diplomatic solution that is palatable, and I think you and I are in agreement that there is none, because the mullahs are not going to give up. What then do you foresee would be the success or lack thereof of a U.S. standalone, with the exception of maybe assistance from Israel, but no coalition of the willing military action against the current regime?
This I wanted to mention. Look, yes, people think, and they rightfully think, that airstrikes cannot change regimes in countries, especially a country as far away as Iran. But there are also rumors that the Americans at the moment are negotiating with part of what's left of the ISIS to act as their boots on the ground. So in that case, this would change the whole scene of the military invasion. So I can't foresee what's going to happen if there is an ISIS in the picture. But look, we inside the country are basically people with nothing to lose. So I would think that even that is something that people would agree to, because we have seen the end. We can't feel anything darker than this shade of black that we're seeing right now. I mean, having more than 36,000 people dead, and that's not something I believe. I believe that the amount is far above that. But anyway, even given that 36,000 people is something valid that we can rely on. Look, a country, a government killed 36,000 of its own people within hours inside the streets. I was part of them. I saw the teenage girls being part of that uprising. I was lucky enough not to be present at the scene where people were attacked, but I'm sure that part of the people that were inside those protests with me have maybe been in trouble at some other hours in some other parts of the city. Some of my friends are arrested. Some of my friends are shot. I was looking personally 2 days ago for doctors to be able to heal one of my friends who was shot with a shotgun with over, I don't know, maybe 400 pieces of those small bullets inside his buttocks. And he has been left for more than 40 days without a doctor because he's scared to go to the hospital, because he knows that if he goes to the hospital to seek a sort of a remedy, he will be arrested immediately. And doctors cannot attend him at home because they cannot risk, because doctors and the medical personnel are also arrested if they help the protesters, people like me. So in this situation, what do you think? We will have someone like Netanyahu as our national hero only because he has once severely bombarded these bastards and has killed some of them for us. So you see the scene. I'm explaining these to be able to give you a gist of what is happening and what people are feeling really inside the country. So a military invasion against this government, whom we are frustrated to move out of the country? Oh yes, sir. Please, by all means.
Thank you. Thank you for that insight. Don't go anywhere. Howard and Marshall both have questions. Howard?
Vendetta, thank you for sharing that insight. And I just think that further supports the question of then what are we negotiating? What's the United States really negotiating here? And if it's truly going to be regime change, and I'm not saying that ultimately isn't going to be the price that will need to be paid, the concern from a U.S. point of view is also going to be how many lives is that going to cost to do something like that? So I in a way, I think the current administration has kind of backed itself into a corner that it's just a no-win situation at this point. I just don't see how this gets successfully resolved. And certainly our heartfelt thoughts with, the terror in the streets, but that's the government, Gary, that is sponsoring all the different terror cells all around the world. And yet we're sending Jared and Witkoff to negotiate a deal. Sometimes you just got to draw a line and say, there's no deal to be negotiated. It's either A or B, and it's either do nothing or force the regime change, but there's a tremendous cost to that. And I just don't think the American population fully realizes what it will need to sign up for to make that happen. So I'm interested to hear what Marshall thinks too.
Agreed. Marshall?
I wanted to say you're in Tehran, so please be safe. I've got the option to be on a few of those Iranian Starlink channels, and the stuff you are facing is just grotesque, to say the very least. I can't watch a bunch of the videos because they're too graphically violent. That's the kind of stuff you can never unsee once you've seen it. So number one, thanks for doing what you're doing. Stay safe, please. We don't want you to get into trouble. I tend to sit in your camp. There's no acceptable thing but for the Iranian regime to give. I don't think a U.S. invasion is the way to go. If you can't answer, please don't. I don't want to get you into trouble. But what about U.S. military aid to the Iranians? Smuggling in weaponry for the Iranian public. Is that even a doable thing?
That is the ideal scenario. So I would be happy if even the Israelis or the Americans would lend us the weapons so that we could do the job as you're stating. But the point is that the regime has been so successful in making fake oppositions that this feeling of trust has been shattered inside the country, and therefore we haven't been able to form any meaningful resistance groups inside the country. So we don't have any sort of meaningful organization to be able to use those weapons. So, and even if that is the case, there must be, camps in countries neighboring Iran so that people can train themselves, and that is going to take at least, 1 year, maybe I haven't done that, but that is an estimated figure, but that is the ideal scenario. But in the lack of that, look, we're dealing with a country who's murdering their own people by thousands, and they're basically expending all the country's resources. They're setting fire to the forests and do all kind of everything. Basically, this is a pool of resources whom they're using, and even giving out to countries like, China, basically, so that they can stay and the Chinese can help them stay. By the way, there was a gentleman who said Chinese are helping with the missiles and everything. No, because as soon as it happens, the Israelis are on their heads and destroying those missiles and everything. But China is helping them heavily with internet filtering technologies like deep packet inspection and everything. But anyway, look, we're dealing with a country, a government who's doing that to the people. Now, discussing agreement with such a government who does that to their own people, what do you think they will do to the rest of the world? They will answer to no one. Okay, so when I say this military invasion, yes, I know it's going to have expenses on other countries, but on the other hand, we're seeing the broader picture, like Iran helping the Russians. And then once Russia is basically weakened to a point that they cannot even feed, any sort of assistance to China, then China will be left alone. So then dealing with China would be much easier. Iran directly helping China and getting help from them. So this is one big ally out of the picture. And then Russia will be left with no on-the-ground ally, i.e. Iran. So I'm seeing the broader picture, and in that broader picture, maybe in midterm, it's to the Americans and the Europeans' advantage, to be honest.
Thank you for that, Vendetta. That was really insightful. We'll go to Dr. Francine, followed by Alan.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to talk or ask Vendetta questions, but
Vendetta, do you mind sticking around? Because I'm sure people have questions for you.
I guess my biggest question is, how many mullahs are we talking about that we would have to, mysteriously die before there was a regime change?
People say that it will be Khamenei and his successor, which is going to be but I would say there should be more than that, because I know the security police who do the job on the ground, at the streets, killing the people, they will be left without a leader, so they will go berserk. It's like the term Ronin, the masterless samurais. I'm not thinking that the samurais is a good attribute being used for them, because these are bastards in my world. But anyway, they will go crazy and they will fire at will at the people. So it has to be in a way that some sort of control after Khamenei is dead will be in place. And in my opinion, the negotiations, part of the negotiations must be around this topic. What will happen if the regime change is in order or being negotiated in these negotiations? This to me seemed more real, to be honest.
When Israel kicked off that one guy when he went to a meeting. Does anyone remember this? It was the radios.
Yeah. With the pagers.
Yes. So is that a possibility?
I don't think so. Firstly, that was a plan that was worked on for several years. I mean, they went from the foundation, they formed companies, and then they formed another company, and this first company sold the pagers to the second company, and then the second company went and sold them to Hezbollah, and they worked, I mean, they prepared the scene from many years beforehand, and this thing happened, and it worked once. It's not going to work again.
No, of course not. But something surreptitious might. I mean, I'm trying to figure it out. I have nothing to bring to this table but experience. Meaning I've been around for a long time, and I know war doesn't really resolve anything, and I also know that the United States is never anxious to participate in a war. We're always the last one in. So, that isn't going to happen, especially now. I mean, all these people who voted for Trump voted for no more foreign intervention. Sorry, yeah. And so there's not going to be a great appetite for war in this country. There is, however, an appetite for helping. We're watching those thumbs going up and thumbs going down. I was watching those. There is an appetite for helping the Iranian people. And there just has to be, the problem is the religious stuff is it's so complicating because it's a completely different value system. If you really think about it, Americans value life more than anything. And if you look at the Islamo-fascists, they don't care. Life is not important. They use their children as human shields. So it's very hard to make a deal under those circumstances. So it's not going to end up being making a deal, although Trump is going to go through a big, long song and dance, flying Wyckoff and Jared and everybody to and from the Middle East endlessly to make it look like it was happening. But if there isn't some kind of other plan B, then I just don't see how making a deal with these people is going to work.
I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that they're playing, they being the U.S. administration, the same game that the Iranian regime plays, and that is use the negotiation as a delaying tactic. Right. Well, no, not cover as much as a delaying tactic to get all of the ducks in a row for military action. But we'll see. We're going to know soon, one way or the other, aren't we?
One quick point.
Yeah.
One quick point, and in the answer to Dr. Francine, wars sometimes solve things, to be honest. And at some point in my life, I remember that I heard that countries like America solve their national debts through wars on other countries. Now, this discussion to be done in length, but that is a tactic.
That's a whole other, yes, that's a whole other issue.
Yeah, it is for sure. I'm not going to.
But I've also heard that Iran, or at least Tehran, doesn't even have water for its citizens. So how do you take part in a war when your citizens can't even drink?
There is water crisis, but it hasn't hit fully, but it is going to very soon. Especially this summer, I don't know what they're going to do with that. It's not just the water. We had several power outages. We have internet issues, as you know, but the issues are on the table for them to solve, but they solve everything through killing the people. You should not forget that.
We'll move on because of the time. Thank you, Dr. Francine. We'll go to Alan, followed by Alex.
Gary, just very briefly, I don't pretend to be an expert in the Middle East. But the one thing I do know is that if someone is going to represent me, I want to trust that person. And I also want someone who can create partnerships. Donald Trump has destroyed most of the partnerships that we had around the world. And regardless of what he says, he can't be believed. So I don't believe that he will solve the problem. And even if he says he solves the problem, I won't believe it. And I think that the JCPOA may not have been perfect, but it was a first step. And I think that's all Obama thought it was. So I'll just leave it there.
Thank you, Alan. We'll go to Alex, followed by Merrill.
Yeah, hi everyone. I was just listening to this room. I A couple of points. Iran's problem is not a religious issue. I've seen many people, including Gary, kind of relating to that. It's this is a government which is just basically trying to survive for their own power and for their own personal benefit. That's really what it's coming down to. This is not a ideological fight for anything.
Well, Alex, let me ask you this question. If they had taken all the money and all the time and all the resources that they put into exporting terrorism, and put it instead into improving the...
that is what they feel, that is what they ironically think that is power for themselves.
Do they see it as power for themselves?
That's the way they define power.
But is that a religiously motivated power?
No, it's personal.
You don't think so?
Yeah, it's and now they're kind of, as a matter of fact, they're now shifting in Iran. So since the people's religious beliefs that doesn't work anymore, the new kind of slogans coming from them is that we're fighting for the not for the religion only. Now we're fighting for Iran, for the sovereignty of Iran, for the greatness of Iran. Now they're kind of trying to sort of adhere to nationalism, trying to sort of get some support in that way. They really are very fluid there's no ideological baseline in Iran. It's all about how to keep themselves in power at any cost. Which comes back to it, so what kind of a deal? I mean, if you kind of understand that part of the mentality, then you understand sort of what kind of a deal can you make with these people. Now, the part that sort of the deals that they have offered, I mean, that's the issue here. So they are willing to part with some parts of Trump's demands. Okay, take the nuclear bomb out. That scenario at this point maybe it's become moot for them, so they're willing to give up the nuclear bomb. They're also willing to give up the proxies, those Hezbollahs and Hamas's and etc., which was another power base for them, simply because it doesn't exist anymore. So they're willing to give that one up, which is already 90% destroyed. I guess the only part that becomes the sticking point is the ballistic missiles. They don't feel safe with that. And to be honest, and now it becomes the issue between Iranians and Israelis. Do the Israelis feel safe with Iranian missiles? They don't feel safe with Iranian missiles. Iranians feel unsafe if they lose the missiles. So I'm not too sure a deal can be done. And any kind of half-baked deal will get to nowhere. And also, one has to understand where Trump comes from and what is the whole point of Iran. No one's doing anything for the benefit of the people of Iran. No one cares about the people of Iran, besides Iranians, obviously. The big issue for Trump here is a global power. What he did with Venezuela, he wants Iran to get out of this whole business of supporting China and subsidizing China. The only problem is it cannot done. See, the problem in Venezuela was easy. You had a government you could rely on to kind of do the transition for you. So now they're trying to move the oil contracts towards the Western contracts and all this stuff, which you had a willing partner. The problem with Iran is even if you kind of I heard in the latest kind of rounds of negotiations, the Iranians came and offered like, we're willing for the Americans to go and participate in the Iranian oil industry. Sure, but I mean, I'm in that business myself, so, well, now I'm a bit out, but I know that business very well. So if you want to do that, so how many Western countries are willing to invest in Iran if you have a unstable government? The problem is even the government says that, look, I'm willing to make a deal with Americans. Are the companies willing to go to an unstable place? And Iran is by definition now become very unstable because the people don't want this government. It's just a matter of time when this government is going to go. So can you kind of make a deal with a government which is not stable? sort of be enough business incentive. And that's a problem, I think, to be solved. So Trump is kind of a bit, his hands are tied. Even if he makes a deal with the government, he's kind of, he's putting himself in a place which is inherently unstable and not a good place to do business with. So nothing can be materialized, not to the benefit of the US, not to the benefit of Iranians. So it's very difficult to make a deal at this time. I think we're kind of running to a scenario post the massacre that Iran has become inherently unstable, and the only way is for this government to go. Now, Trump cannot do it on his own, and just a military strike is not enough. People have to, I mean, all the elements are there, but how the outcome is going to play out is very difficult to predict. It's just, I mean, if you want to look at it on the long run, it's only a matter of time. This government is now literally kind of just fighting for survival. But timeline might not sort of meet the sort of like the Trump's timeline, like what he wants to do and how he can claim a victory. And that's why sort of everyone's kind of in a position that, okay, does Trump really want to make a half-baked deal with the Iranians and say, okay, so since they're offering the nuclear, I'll take the nuclear off the table, maybe I take the proxies, I call that a victory? Yes, he can do that. That would not go down in history for him very well either. He's not going to be what he wants in history, but that's maybe the best he can do.
Thank you, Alex. I want to ask Vendetta his reaction to Alex's claim that I and others put too much emphasis on the religious ideology and less on just power, which everybody in positions such as that can fall into that trap of absolute power, corrupting absolutely. Vendetta, do I and others put too much emphasis on the Islamic fundamentalist theology?
The regime is using that as a tool to have their the people around them, because they know that through ideology they can have the mind of the people following their whatever they need to say, and the people will follow them based on that. If they lose that ideology, they know that there won't be much people left around them. So this tool has helped them to stick to power for so many years, now almost around 5 decades, and they will use that, although this ideological thing has been weakened, because at some point the regime felt that they had to give some mechanism to, especially the IRGC heads, to make them satisfied. So they gave them very big privileges, like the economical privileges and everything, and that's why they have been fat commanders, as we call them now. I mean, fat in terms of their living situation. So
they themselves are not true believers. They are using that ideology to control a substantial number of people.
Let me give you an example. I knew a person who was a personal chauffeur, a driver to one of the middle-ranking IRGC commanders. And he quoted that commander. He said, whenever there was prayer time, even if he was inside the car and I was taking him somewhere, he would ask me to stop by the middle of the road so that he could do the prayer. So when I asked him why he did that, he said that this is the first thing that you have to learn, because it matters how they see you, they look at you from inside the government, the regime. If you are able to convince them that you are, from ideological standpoint, you are a very ideological person, then you don't have that power that they think that they can give you and they can rely on you. So basically, you are a reliable person from the inside the mindset of the government. So this is basically the idea behind that, and he believed that even if you want to have that power personally, you have to be able to show that to the environment around you. And once they believe that, they will give you lots of power, and they even give you, I don't know, parts of the economy. It's such that inside the government, there are families who are controlling, like the mafia families, and certain privileges are given to those families. And once you can convince the system that you're with them, and you are absolutely strong in terms of ideology, which basically means that you are with the government, and you will not be deceived by any other things in the middle of the way, then the next generation's prosperous life will be guaranteed. This is the mindset.
Thank you, Vendetta. It's very insightful. Appreciate that. Meryl, followed by Velvet.
I don't offer any solutions, or I have questions. When you talk about war, presidents sit down, and generals, everybody sits down with them, and I remember reading about Obama. The generals, everybody sat down with him and presented arguments. Some said this, some said that. He wanted that. He wanted to know everything before he made a decision. Now, when I think of Trump, I don't know who the advisors are. I don't know what they tell him. I don't know what he listens to, who he listens to. And when it comes to war, I don't know if he understands. Do we know? Does he know what can be achieved? Can it be achieved? What is he trying to achieve? And is it something that is possible to achieve? And how does it affect us? Because it is our military. We have to think of them. We do have to think of them. Not just, you can talk about all the greater good that we might be doing if we weren't able to have a regime change, but we still have to think about what's the cost to our military. So that's it. That's my concern. My concern is that I don't have faith that this is a president who listens well to people, and I'm not so sure who the people are that are advising him. Thank you.
Hello?
I turned the microphone on and I spoke, but the microphone wasn't on. I apologize for that. I'm talking to myself, which I do often. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Meryl. We'll now go to Velvet, followed by David Chin. I'm sorry, you came up too late. But Velvet, followed by David, and then Barack gets the last word.
Hi, thank you for giving me the mic. Also,
and for you, I'm happy to see you. We can actually hear you when I give you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's a pleasure for me. And I'm also an Iranian, so my heart goes to Vendetta because I'm not in Iran, but I know he is in Iran, and I'm thinking about him and all.
I know, and I really appreciate. I mean, it takes. They're really good at tracking and that kind of stuff. So I know it takes a little bit of courage to come here and share with us.
It does. Yes, it does. Yeah, even now that I'm not inside Iran, I'm not revealing my identity, so it takes courage. So, yeah. But I wish the person that spoke before me, I wish she was here, because the point is, people think, speak so highly about Barack Obama and say, yeah, he was listening to his advisors, etc. But what is his legacy? I mean, regarding the situation in the Middle East and specifically extensively about. But what that did was to give opportunity and time to the Islamic regime to fund its other projects. Because one thing that is missing from all this discussion is it's not just about the nuclear program. Actually, you might not believe it, but the nuclear program is not the main thing. It's the cover up. The main thing is the ballistic missile. So the Islamic regime has the three instruments, obviously: the nuclear program, the ballistic missile program, and the proxy program. But they always say, yes, we are happy to negotiations about the nuclear program, etc. And they use it as a cover-up for the main destructive weapon that they have, about which they never negotiate and they never compromise. And it is as lethal as a nuclear program. And so what Obama did by lifting up the sanctions through the JCPOA, they just gave them enough money to develop their ballistic missile program, and what they did during the 12-day war to Israel. All those 4 layers of air defense system in Israel was not able to defend 100% of the missiles. Yes, a significant portion of them, but still they were so much very destructive to Israel. And imagine what would happen if they just extend the range of those weapons, which they are doing it. I mean, they have built intercontinental ballistic missiles, and also, they were developing just about 3 months ago, there were news that they're developing, I don't know how to put it in English, but with micro and chemical sort of missiles with microbic and chemical.
Biological?
Yes, biological, but they were all ballistic as well. So the point is, it is very lethal. And another point is, I hear that Americans say, it is not our thing. Yes, we do care about humanity, etc., but it is our tax payment, expenses and government's income that is going to be spent on that war, and it is not our war. We should just care about our own country. But the point is, if you stop thinking about them and dealing with them, and winning in them, in the situation in the Middle East, they will not stop. That's something that you are missing. You're simply missing. They want to destroy your country. And from age of 7, I'm quite sure Mendez can corroborate, and also there seems to be another Iranian person on the stage, Mehrad, so he could also corroborate. From age of 7, they teach us in the schools to chant death to England, death to America, death to Israel every single day. That's their ideology, and they refer to Israel as little Satan, but the United States as the great Satan. You cannot just ignore that. And sorry, if we Iranians are urging the international community, not just the United States, but the whole international community, because we consider it to be a humanitarian issue, and it is the responsibility of the whole free world countries to intervene in the situation in Iran. But when we do that, we are not stupid. We know that there are costs involved. There are uncertainties involved. There are risks involved. No one can guarantee an outcome. No one can. But that's the point. There is a conflict to be made which no one can avoid, because it's like you have, as a person, as an individual, you had a cancer. You cannot just turn a blind eye on it and, dream that it would diminish or eliminate it automatically. It will not. It will just get worsen and it will be intensified. You have to treat it. So in a broader aspect, the whole world has a cancer. And that cancer is in Iran, because they are very ideological, and they are the mastermind behind all terrorist activities across the Middle East region. They are funding Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis in Yemen, Ashashari in Iraq, Qatar Hezbollah in Iraq, Fatimiyun, Zainabiyun, the corrupt government of Syria back before al-Bashar al-Assad, and they are using our oil because Iran happens to be a very rich country with lots of natural resources, mineral resources, oil, etc. They're using our wealth to fund those terrorist activities. So the world have to make have to make a choice and deal with this situation, because there's no way for you guys, for Americans, to avoid it. And it's better for you to use the progressive Iranian people. I mean, I'm not sure to what extent you have come across Iranians. And by the way, there are also, because this regime invests a lot of money significantly in its propaganda machine and intelligence service machines. So there are, they actively engage in social media platforms, including Clubhouse, but also in Twitter, etc. So the point is there might be voices, so-called Iranian voices, that are agents of the regime. But in real life, I'm not sure how many Iranians have you ever seen. Iranian people, as opposed to all other countries in the Middle East, and even I would say, and I'm not making this up, I just hear this, the argument that I'm going to make, from a university lecturer in the city in which I live. And he was so unbiased as opposed to me. Actually, I as an Iran, I'm so biased, but he was not. He was saying, I have been in many countries, and he didn't mean just Middle Eastern countries, Western. And he said, I have never seen, just pay attention. He said, I have never seen this much, not non-religious, but anti-religion people as I have seen in Iran. And that's the reality. I'm not necessarily saying that being anti-religion, etc., is a good thing or bad thing. I'm not making a judgment. I personally, as the majority of Iranians believe that religion has to do with your personal matters, and so long as it remains in your house and in your church or in your mosque, etc., it's fine. It's your personal belief. But the moment you start to impose it on other people, that's where the problem arises. But my point is, it's much better for the world to be ally with the progressive Iranian people who are against Islamic terrorism and extremism, as opposed to all other countries. I mean, look at Qatar, look at Saudi Arabia, look at even Turkey, whose people's life is quite different. But look at all those countries, how they look at the United States and how they look at Israel, how they look at West. They separate you. Look at what happened in 9/11. I know 9/11 is, for Americans, is a sort of a controversial matter, because some people have, I wouldn't say delusion or whatever, but some Americans believe that the
delusions.
Yeah. So some of them say United States government had something to do with it, but I'm not educated enough.
I'm educated enough to agree with that terminology.
Oh, okay, sorry. I shouldn't comment on that, because again, I'm not educated enough. But the point is, it was a sad event for the United States. Do you agree? Regardless of who did that, whether it was the government or some people in the government, or it organically arose from a terrorist organization named Al-Qaeda. It was a sad situation for the United States, right? So look at how the Middle Eastern people reacted in Palestine, in so many Arab countries.
They celebrated.
They were celebrating. They were cheering. But do you know what Iranians did? Do you know that? Have you seen the clips? It was 5 years ago, etc. In Iran, people were putting on candles. Just go and search in the YouTube, search in the Google. 25 years ago, people were saying USA in Persian, condolences. So that's the point. Sorry, I don't want to lecture in a monologue, etc. But yeah, thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. I don't think you were lecturing at all. And I was not disagreeing with you. I was agreeing with you. David, followed by Murat.
Yeah, great room, Gary. Again, heart goes out to obviously the casualties and the victims of this regime that are dying on the streets, fighting for their right to survive and freedoms. 9/11 is a very personal matter. For those in the room who were talking about why we need to go over there, I would ask if they've got children, who are able to serve in the military, to march them into the recruitment centers and sign them up. Put their sons or daughters over there to fight for this. They really believe in this cause, which I'm not saying it's not a good cause, but I'm saying that's the ultimate price that one would make. And 9/11 is very personal because I came from a farm worker community where a lot of my Latino friends whose parents were immigrants worked in the fields. They would go fight and serve in the military as ways to pay for college, to show their patriotism to this country. And we lost an All-American football player named Osvaldo Orozco. He was one of the first casualties of the Iraq War. He had a full ride scholarship to Cal Poly, and he didn't have to serve in the military. And he believed that 9/11, he believed that we were attacked. He believed that in what he was doing, and that was a just war. Fast forward, and we know quite the opposite happens with regard to the backstory of why we went into Iraq.
Right, but so, let's swing back to Iran.
Well, I'm focusing on this. Yeah, I'm saying this is the price America's going to pay, right? And why isn't the Congress debating this? Why isn't Trump, including the constitutional mandates of Congress going to war? He already got slapped down on the terrorists by the Supreme Court.
Because they gave themselves the ability to not involve themselves, as is their constitutional requirement, after 9/11, and that ability has never been, I know I refer to it as an ability, their ability to avoid taking a stance on a war has never expired, even though we're all these years after 9/11. That's the short answer to your question, but I presume you asked it in a question rhetorically in order to make a point.
Well, even that said, Gary, look, we talk about the West, right? Who's the West? The West isn't just us, isn't just Israel. It's all of Europe. And where are they involved? And why are we building a coalition? If Iran is going to be so bad for the world that this is a cancer, and I agree that it is, well, the whole world is going to be impacted by it, not just America, not just Israel. And so where are the forces and the military and the money that's backing this in a way that shows a full Western response? And of course, we've got Europe complaining. We got the right growing in Europe with regard to the overreach of policies that have allowed for Islamic fundamentalism to flourish in their countries. And so we have a whole lot of debates that are surrounding the Islamic Republic here in Iran. And with regard to the hypocrisy, and I'm really glad that they brought this up, because the IRGC sends their kids to the West. They send their kids here. I believe there's about 4,000 family members of the IRGC that are studying here, living here in America, in London, England, France. And what's going to happen to their children, to their family members, and who is going to pay the ultimate, who's going to go to jail, who's going to be brought to trial and justice for these murders of these 30,000 plus Iranian civilians that have died in the wake of this? How does Witkoff and Kirshner go forward and negotiate who pays for that? And what's the remedy for that? Are we just putting a dollar sign behind a negotiation where, if you relax your repression and, you cut a deal on the oil? I don't know what kind of deal they're going to cut to basically rein in this regime. So, maybe the military, if there's going to be a military response here, I'd like to see it being done under a NATO mandate, the way George Bush Sr. did it in Gulf War I. Gulf War II was a little bit more neoconish with regard to his desires to go there. But I think we need to be careful, Gary, because once we ring the bell, we can't unring it. And then, of course, there's our allies in the region who are in harm's way of these missiles. They don't live, 10,000 miles away like we do. You got Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and the like. I mean, they're all going to be impacted by a response, the kind of which they're not probably ready to receive, let alone telling their own people that this isn't a great Satan war led by the West to subjugate further, Muslim citizens in these countries. So there's that whole, there's 1.4 billion Muslims in the world, Gary. And I think we have to have a very measured response so that we don't turn this into another holy war. A holy war of massive
right. And most of the Muslims of the world, especially the Arab states in the region, are fearful of Iran. They want this regime gone as well. Got to move on because it's 7:02.
Okay, sorry, I'll end there. Yeah, all right.
Okay, Moran, I'll give you a very short last word.
Buonasera, Gary. We are respect to Howard and Vendetta. No deal, the West will wish to no deal with Iran because Iran is playing with the legs of the world, with the wisdom of the world 47 years. And the attack of U.S. Army and IDF is something utter, sheer, and mere in the middle of March because of pursuit of nuclear bomb and activating fuse and detonator of an atomic and nuclear bomb. And CIA knows, IDF knows, Shabak knows, and Donald Trump discuss and negotiate and consult with Pete Hegseth and IDF and Mossad and Shabak and CIA. And this proclaim is something utter, and also the careers, the airplanes, the fighters, and the Navy of the United States has not gone for meditation to Middle East, to Persian Gulf, to Mediterranean Sea, and Jordan bases are in a standby position. And it is, the attack is something sheer, mere, and utter. And what I want to pose that, the matter of the criminal leader of Islamic Republic, in the presence of the soul of Aida Haidari, the victim of IRGC, she was a doctor, a chemist like me. In the presence of Aida Haidari, I would declare that if, as Donald Trump said, if you hang one by crane in the squares, I will attack Iran right now. If one civilian, Iranian civilian, would be killed by an air, by IDF or US Army, or an Israeli civilian would be killed, if one Israeli civilian would be killed by the rockets of IRGC, or one soldier, one American soldier would be killed by IRGC, however, they are not capable to kill even one American soldier. They are anti-drones. If one civilian Iranian, one civilian Israeli, or an American soldier would be killed by IRGC, the access and the plan of avenge will be activated for the criminal leader in 21 days. The plan of revenge is something utter, sheer, and mere in 21 days. But the plan of avenge will be activated. And this, in address to Vendetta, count on the wisdom of Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth is a true believer of Jesus, Look at C-SPAN, how he prays in the presence of Donald Trump toward Jesus. Kate Hegseth is a very true believer of Jesus. And when you want to raise a discussion, raise a narrative, think about that, and know that this is the matter of ideology, the distorted ideology of Islam. And they are believers of distorted Shiism, which is remained from Safaviya. Safaviya is the enemy, and Islamic Republic is the enemy of Prophet Muhammad and all religions, all Abrahamic religions, because they believe that everything has gone, all the messengers has gone for the governance of the first Imam of Shias. And Prophet Muhammad, who was the son of Hashem, who was the son of Moses, who was the son of Ibrahim, was a decor, and all things is for the governance of Ali bin Abi Talib, first Imam of Shias. However, first Imam of Shias is a follower of Prophet Muhammad. And this distorted religion, these non-authentic believers and not original believers of Islam, which was previously Sunnis, by the attack of Second Caliphate of Islam, and I must declare that if one civilian Iranian, one civilian Israeli, or one American soldier would be killed by IRGC, the pro-planned, not pre-planned, the revenge and the arrest of the criminal leader is something utter by Pete Hegseth and his squad. If one civilian, Iranian or Israeli or one American soldier would be killed by IRGC, the avenge plan will be activated for criminal supreme leader of Iran.
We'll see if it happens. We'll see if it happens. Thank you, Murad. Folks, we're here Monday through Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. New York time. So till 5 p.m. New York time tomorrow for the next edition of the Critical Thinking Forum. Everybody be safe, be well, and peace out.